Good morning, everybody. We have a very special Fireside Chat today, and today is May the 4th, so... So, a little bit of Star Wars for you, and I also have my Star Wars socks on. I have to show you guys this. This is my favorite part of May the 4th, is it's the Star Wars holiday. We have Star Wars socks. I don't know if you guys can see. I'll try not to fall off this chair. But we've got R2-D2, and we've got the Star Wars theme. So those are my Star Wars socks by Stance. We're going to go live today with Denise Tryon, and Denise is one of my all-time favorite people, one of my all-time favorite horn players. And yeah, we have a lot of memories together, a lot of stories together, and yeah, thank you guys. So we're going to do our live chat with Denise. Let's see if we can find her. Okay. Denise Tryon. Is she DT low horn? That's what we're... Aha, there we are. On live with Denise. And we first met in Detroit back in, I think, 2009 at Carl Pittick's house. Hey, Denise.
Hey,
Great to see you. Good morning.
good to see you. Good morning.
Hey, your hair looks fantastic.
Thanks. I was just trying to, keep up with you.
You know, it's just the corona. I mean, it's seriously like this corona style. I've never had this much hair in my life.
Yeah,
Seriously.
same for me. It's very long, so I thought, well, I'll just make it go insane.
Let's see how high we can get
Exactly.
the tuft. I was just recounting the first time we met in 2009.
Yeah.
I was just telling everyone that I think it was maybe like June of 2009. I was in Carl Pittick's house. You were practicing in the basement. And I remember like someone, I think Carl had said, oh yeah, Denise is downstairs. And I was like, Denise Tryon? Denise? And he's like, yeah, we're getting ready for audition mode. And he's real soft spoken. I mean, I love Carl Pittick, one of the great horn players out there, and your partner in crime in audition mode. So can you tell that story when you walked up from the basement?
So I walk up, and Carl's like, oh, Denise, I want to introduce you to Dave Cooper. And you were just like, your eyes just got as big as they could possibly get. I could see the whites all the way on. You're like, awesome. And it's like, okay, it's nice to meet you.
Yeah.
And then we were going to lunch because I was there so that we could rehearse for an upcoming recital. And so we were going to lunch. So Carl says, well, Dave, do you want to join us? You're like, awesome. I think it's the only thing you said for the entire lunch, the entire time.
Someone says here, that's a great impression. They're like very good. Oh no. I think Tony Padilla says that's a good Carl impression. Well, I think you have an even better impression of me.
Yeah. I can't get my eyes as wide as you can. Yeah.
It's just like that. We call those the high beams, and they're like when I'm really excited about something, the high beams come on, or if I have too much coffee. But the other thing too is
cheers to that.
And yeah, oh my gosh, you got a giant. What are you drinking there? Oh my gosh, that is such a cool mug. That's an octopus. Is it like handmade, or is it just like
Nope. It's just, I found it in the store and I liked it so much. It had two colors, so I got another color as well. So I'm drinking some tea to get my day going.
To keep up with me.
Yes. There's not enough caffeine in the world, my friend.
So Muffy always demands to be on.
Okay, hold on.
This is the Muffy segment of our chat. So Muffy. Oh my gosh, who is
There's
this?
Ozzy. Hi, Ozzy.
Oh, Ozzy.
Oh
my gosh.
Yeah,
baby.
He's 6 months old, French bulldog, and very much interested in the window outside. Right,
Jen Gunn is our piccolo player, and Jen has two Frenchies.
Yeah, Jen's a good friend of mine, and I was there in September, maybe?
Yeah.
No, August. I was visiting in August, and we hadn't gotten the French bulldog yet, and one of her dogs was all over me. So yeah.
So maybe Jen was the reason that you got a French Bulldog.
Well, I've been wanting a French Bulldog for probably 7 or 8 years, and it just hasn't, that the house in Philly, it didn't have really any yard. It wasn't the right place. So the house in Cincinnati is the right place for a dog. So yeah,
that's awesome. I mean,
pretty excited.
So yeah, that's right. We've hung out in Detroit. You weren't there playing in Detroit, but then shortly after I came to Philly, I think I was doing Saratoga Springs or the Mann Center.
Yep.
I remember we did West Side Story.
Yeah.
And it was one of those ones where I was like, it's West Side Story. It's I've seen that movie. It's from the 60s. I don't even know.
Oh my God, it's so hard.
And I remember I got the music. I was like, well, I'm playing with Philly, so I'll just look at the music. It was I had 3 weeks, and I was like, oh, this is hard.
This is hard.
This is really, really hard. And I only had to play half of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was for me. I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine having to play the whole thing. So this time, we played it in Chicago at Ravinia last summer. And I remember trying to get out of the second half. I was like, last time I did it, I just played the first half of it.
They were like, yeah, no.
You want to split the book? And Dan was like, I think this would be one I'd like to take off if you don't. I was like, yes, sir, absolutely. Yeah.
Good answer. Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah. So no, but your house in Philly, I just remember it was happy. It was you'd color on the walls, and it was it was in that neighborhood from the M. Night Shyamalan movie, I See Dead People.
What? Really?
Yes. You know that park? They're walking down. There's the little park in the middle of the street. There's it's this. Yeah. There's a street with no cars, and there's a garden in the middle, a planter in the middle of the street.
Yeah, yeah.
And there are houses on either side. And I think they walk down this sidewalk, and there's the kid. I see dead people.
I never put that together, but I guess so.
You go back and
I'm gonna go back and watch. Yeah,
go back and watch the M. Night Shyamalan movies. They're all set in Philly.
Yeah, nice.
Do you miss anything about Philly? Any restaurants or any scenery or?
Well, I miss the energy of Philly. I loved being able to walk out my door, and within 10 minutes you had a dozen restaurants or bars that you could go to. Not that we can do any of that now, but I miss a time when we could. I also miss the time when we could do that. But that's one of the things I miss about Philly. Of course, I miss my friends. I miss playing with the orchestra. It's a fantastic orchestra. Playing with that string section is like wearing a fuzzy, warm blanket. It's so amazing. Yeah, there are a couple of restaurants that I really loved. One was really close to the hall called Jose Pistola's. I love Mexican food, and so this is Mexican food. And it's one of the places that whenever I go back, I have to go there. Oh, wow. And then there were a couple of places close to my house that I loved and really missed. And was one of our criteria when we were looking for houses in Cincinnati is we want to be able to walk 10 minutes and get to a little downtown, which we have. We have a cute little sort of main street type of thing where close to where I live.
So you don't necessarily have the Philly Max,
no,
Philly.
No,
is there any Mexican food?
Yeah, there's a Mexican place, actually two, although I haven't been to one, but about a 10-minute walk, and it's not how do I say this in the nice possible way? It's not super high end, but it's really tasty and it's consistent, and it's real relaxed vibe. So I like that. We've got a great wine store near us. We've got a couple of good breakfast places. We've got some higher end things and some sort of traditional diners. So
you got diners, you got breakfast, you got Mexican. I'm coming to Cincy. That's it.
Yeah.
No, I drove through Cincinnati one time, and I remember there's canyon. I can't describe it any other way. There's a river that goes through Cincinnati. Excuse me. And there are canyons on either side. Yeah. Of this river. The riverbank is rock. And there's this big bridge that goes across Cincinnati, right? And I just remember
it goes across the Ohio River, and it goes basically from Ohio to Kentucky. So when you cross that river, you're in Kentucky, which is crazy to me that it's Cincinnati's that far south. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you think of Ohio, you just think of like neighbors with Canada, neighbors with Pennsylvania.
Oh, right.
Yeah, but not
Neighbors with Kentucky.
I guess that's right. So, yeah, I got to hear about your journey to, Cincinnati, how you started off in, Detroit, and then you went from Detroit to Philly. I mean, those are huge auditions to win.
Yeah.
And, and then of course you taught at Peabody Conservatory, and then, you're at the Cincinnati Conservatory of Music. But first of all, before we do that, let's say hi to some people that are online.
Awesome.
So if you just scroll through some of the names, we can do some shout outs. We've got a bunch of people watching. Okay, so we've got Lizzie the Cat, Sarah Ferenc, Andrew F. Music, Daniel Itzkowitz. We've got Lucas Horns. Yes.
Yay. Hi, Dan. We got Shona. Nice.
Stephen Burrian from Michigan, from the Detroit Opera Theater.
Yeah.
Yep. He was a friend of mine.
Hey, Jen Gunn is here. Hi, Jen.
Bartek Trumpet. Who else? That girl, Jayla. Hey, that girl, Jayla. We've got Jenny Benny. We've got Kaza 0807. And let's see. We've got Evandro, Ivo Andre Pereira.
I haven't gotten there.
So, honestly, like when you do these shout outs, that's like the worst thing is that like, you're going to mispronounce the names. So we got Tony Padilla,
Christina, Masher Turner. Hi, Christina.
We've got some highs from Japan. We also have Clayton Bobaton. Good morning.
Yeah, Clayton.
Carl Pinnock is watching. Holy smokes.
Carl. Carl, did you like David's impression of you?
All right, so that impression is an impression of an impression. So that impression's from Haley, because Haley tells that story about Carl, working with Carl. We've got Tack Horn. I won't repeat the story because, like Carl was going up for a solo and Haley, Yeah. So
you and I know the story, and so does Carl. And
exactly.
Carl says it was such a great impression. Hey, and Christina says that Carrie and Christina are both watching. Hi, guys.
Awesome. So could you talk about the octopus and how you love octopus, and then we'll talk about your journey to Cincinnati.
All right. So a number of years ago, I used to say 5 years ago, but I think it's getting closer to 10 at this point. My husband gave me an octopus necklace. It's pretty big. It's a cutout of a bronze cutout. And I used to wear it all the time, but and so I say it started with that. And he said, that's a really weird gift. I would not have given that to you unless you'd already been talking about it. And so, so apparently I read an article or something, and they're just so incredibly fascinating to me. They have 3 hearts. Their blood is blue. Their suckers on their arms, their suckers are taste. The only thing that's hard on them is their beak, and so they can fit through a hole the size that whatever their beak can fit through. So you can have a huge octopus and have a hole that size, and the octopus can fit through it. So they're incredibly intelligent. They learn very quickly. And, jokingly, I sometimes wish I had 8 arms so that I could slap 8 people too. No?
I think that's the real reason. That's it. You just wish you had 8 arms. Amazing. Yeah, I hear they're like some of the most intelligent animals like on the planet.
Yeah.
They've got feelings, and when they get bashful, they turn different colors. When they get excited, they turn different colors.
Yeah, they can recognize people, and I don't know, they're just incredible. And so I've really taken to it. And then I got one for my horn, which I have it sitting here in case.
Yes.
So I have one for my horn.
Inky.
Well, it's Octavius Inky Kling. So yes. And yeah, I have one for my other horn, but my other horn is at school. I haven't been able to get it. But yeah, so as soon as I started like having a couple around, people then just give them to me. So they are everywhere.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I just feel like, the octopus has kind of become your thing. It's your mascot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. That's, I mean, like everyone needs a mascot. I don't know what mine would be. We can all vote on
Yeah, I think we should take a vote on that.
Either Doug the dog from Up, squirrel,
Yeah.
or Hamilton from Over the Hedge.
Yeah, right. Nice.
So
Yeah.
I was thinking. Someone asks, Fernando JRR16 asks, hi Denise, do you have a low horn method, or where or can I have it? Greetings from Spain.
So I have, basically, I get asked this question a lot. You know, what do I do to make my the low register of the instrument be better? And the first thing I say is be sure that you're practicing down there. I mean, you know, it's amazing. I'll ask somebody, well, let's say you practice 3 hours a day. We'll just talk in round numbers. Tell me how many minutes you think you practice in the low register, you know, and they'll say, oh, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes. And I'll say, okay, we'll turn that around. Let's say your high register is not great and you only practice 15 minutes in the high register. And they're like, well, it won't get better. Yeah, okay, well, there you go. So part of it is whatever you're playing, it could be an etude, it could be solo stuff, could be excerpts. Play it down an octave or two just to work on it. You'll learn different things. You'll learn how to make whatever it is that you're working on actually better, how to use your air a little bit more efficient. And but then I have a warm-up routine that I've done for many years. And that is available online. So if you actually search Denise Tryon and routine, it'll come up and it's available online. So the PDF of it, but also it's a video of me playing each exercise and explaining why and how. And then there's also just audio of me playing it if you want to play along. Of course, I only play it in certain keys, and I recommend that you play it in a bunch of keys. But
yeah. So Vinny Carletti says, I need to practice everything then. Doing the routine right now, Clayton Bobaton.
Yeah, Clayton.
4 hours high, 4 hours low. So
woo, that's a lot of practicing.
I mean, eventually down the road, maybe it'd be awesome for our people if we could do like a live warm up with you, like an Instagram takeover, and you do a live. Maybe down the road, would that be something you'd be interested in?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. Yeah. I would really love that. So we'll talk about the details later.
Okay.
So could you tell us just, I mean, like, you're known as like a real like proficient low horn player, but I don't think of you as a low horn player. I think of you as like a chamber musician. I think of you as a soloist. I think of you as an instructor. I think of you, you played fourth horn in Philly, but it's just something you can do. How is it dangerous for us to classify us as like, you know, low horn players or high horn players?
Yeah, I have a couple of different lines of thought on that. I will say that somebody a couple years ago said, I think you need to stop marketing yourself as a low horn player. I think you're limiting yourself. And my sort of thought is, yes, I can play Strauss 1. I can go play Mozart Concerti. But I think it would just be another voice, that not necessarily a special voice. And I'm a quite good high horn player. But I think that it's more beneficial for the audience and horn players to hear me play in the low register, and to show that you can have a beautiful sound and you can sing and make music in that register. And it's not just about showing like how muscly and strong you can be. So, so that's my first train of thought. The second one is that, for a long time, for many years, through college and through my time in the New World Symphony, I played high horn pretty much all the time. I played first horn in New World for the majority of all the pieces. And I was only taking high horn auditions, and I made it to the finals of a couple. And then I was reaching the end of my time at New World, and I thought, man, I just have to start taking anything that comes up. So I took fourth horn in Columbus, Ohio, just up the road from where I am. It was my first low horn audition, and I won it. Wow. And so I sat in that job for 2 years, but honestly, after a couple of months of sitting in that job, I thought, wow, I love this. I loved being the bass line. I loved providing that foundation, that stability. And if you do your job well, it makes everybody else's job a little bit easier to figure out how to tune, to figure out how to just be stable. So I take my job very seriously, and I love it. So that's how that all started. That's, I don't, 20 some odd, 5, 8, I don't know, years ago. I don't know, a long time ago.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, I think when we're in the horn section and we have a really great low horn player there, like that's kind of our bridge between the tuba and the low brass. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the bridge between the horn section and the low brass. Yeah. And really, it's the base of all the chords. I mean, it's so important to have a really solid bass line. You know, yeah. The fourth horn, sometimes people think, oh, you know, it's the you know, fourth chair. And I mean, I know horn players don't think that. I know orchestral players, you know that. But yeah, it's not like you lost the chair challenge. It's like you,
yeah, right, like, right. I just kept losing until I got to fourth. I was like, where do I go from here? Next job is out.
Yeah, it's so.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I will say that I've had times when in my career where people have said to me, "Oh, well, it's just, you know, it's just fourth horn. You know, it's easy." You know, I actually had somebody say a trained monkey could play that. And I was like, wow, I'm really insulted right now. Because I don't think a trained monkey could do it. Let me be clear. Maybe a trained octopus. I don't know. They're pretty amazing.
Yeah, exactly. They've got the embouchure for
it. Yeah, right.
the beaker face.
Yeah.
So Jeff Nelson's watching. A quick shout out to Jeff Nelson.
Hey, Jeff.
Yeah,
last horn is all that matters. Yeah, baby.
Jeff played fourth horn in Vancouver for a number of years.
Yeah.
And yeah, but I mean, Jeff, I mean, phenomenal low player as well as high player. But it's just, yeah, I think that's really great that you specified, hey, listen, I can do the other stuff. I really do this well, but it's because I spend time in it. And it's also because I feel it's very important. I take it seriously.
Yeah, I care. I really care about the product that gets put out.
Yeah.
And I think that anytime you pick up the horn, no matter what is on your stand, you want to play it to the best of your ability. There are some people who are like, oh, pops, I don't take it as seriously. It's like, pops is harder a lot of times than other things.
Yeah.
You know, some people don't like etudes.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it just doesn't matter. Whatever gets put on your stand, you try to play it the best that you can play it, because I don't understand what my standards are if I don't take something seriously.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, okay, either all or nothing, right? And it's like, well, I'll pick and choose which ones I take seriously. And again, you know, I was a younger player when I, you know, got the music for West Side Story. You know, like earlier in the interview, I was talking about West Side Story. Yeah. And saying like, oh, it's a Pops concert, it's outdoors. But, you know, like, I remember, like, I did look at it. That's the difference is, like, you know, in my mind, sometimes, like, as a younger player, you think, oh, Pop's concert, like, hey, maybe I don't need to spend as much time on this as, like, Mahler 5. But, you know, what I learned from that lesson was that Pop's concerts, I mean, number one, it's great music. I think West Side Story might be the greatest piece of American music.
Yeah, it's really fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of another piece that's actually better, like by an American composer. I mean, except for Star Wars, of course.
I don't have Star Wars socks on. I feel so underdressed for the occasion. I'm so sorry.
I know. Yeah, exactly. It's May the 4th.
I know. Yeah. But hey, I did actually put on makeup today, so you know. It's small miracles.
I know, right? You know, for me, just putting on real pants and real shirts and a real shirt.
Like a nice shirt. Yeah, okay.
So, you know, that's for us, like right now, it's just a matter of like staying positive and doing whatever we can to give back. How are you keeping positive during this time, and what goals are you having to kind of? You said everything you put on your stand, you take seriously.
Yeah.
And I think, like, you know, that's kind of an attitude, just doing the best at whatever you do. I think that's just part of your personality. But, you know, like, how are you keeping that up in this time of stay at home where you don't necessarily have the goals of, you know, concerts or, you know, recitals?
It's been challenging mentally. You know, I'm not going to lie. And for a lot of this time, I've been teaching full time. So that's created some structure to my day, and I'm done now. It's been about a week and a half since I last did any teaching. But that did create some structure, because Monday through Friday I was basically teaching from 11 to 4 or 11 to 5. And and I have another sort of rule that I always give to myself before I give to anyone else. And you and I were texting before this, and I said, I'm trying to get all my practicing in before we start. And you say, me too. So yeah. I was always when I was teaching, in the practice room by 10, at least since the stay-at-home orders have been happening. So I do, and during that time, for me, the most important is if my face is feeling good, I'm mentally happy, and I'm more happy to be working on other things. And so that hour from 10 to 11, and I've continued that after I finished teaching, because it was just I like schedule. Yeah. I'm a very routine person. Yeah. So
I think routine for me is really one of those things that if I can just get in a routine, get in a schedule, just try to, wake up at the same time, try to hit my practicing first so I can, do other things like, have, FaceTime calls with my family or friends. But just hit that practicing first, get it out of the way, then do my workout. And then as soon as I'm done with that stuff, then it's like, okay, now it's variables, but the practice has to come first for me.
It has to come first for me. Yeah. And I'm somebody that, it doesn't seem like I would be this way, but I am like the best procrastinator on the planet. And I have such if you give me a choice between doing something else fun and practicing, or doing a workout, or, something like that, I'm going to choose whatever, TV, play with the dog, just to hang out. So I have to have that schedule, and I need to do, especially the playing first. So for me, I always start with, one of my favorite books is by Joseph Chantal. And in fact, I make all of my students play out of it. Do you have it there? If not, I have it.
It's right behind me. Okay.
You got it?
This is the Chantal book, right?
Yeah.
And it's backwards, but everyone can see.
Right.
CHANTL.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is the book, the green book.
The back of that book, maybe the last 8 or so pages, is just scale exercises. And so since we've been on quarantine, I've been playing those. I start my day off after a little small, 3-4 minute warm up. I start playing that, and I play that all the way through. And then I play my warm up routine, which I referenced earlier in our talk. And then I do, out of the Farkas book, the Art of Playing the French Horn, out of that, there on page 60 and 61, there is, he calls it the lower octave, which I love because it's just the break range for me.
Yeah.
But it's just an exercise, it's a page and a half of exercises through that. And it's just 2 notes back and forth, but it's around the harmonic series. And I do it as written, which is all slurred. And then I go back and I do it all articulated.
I remember that from the first time we met. I remember asking you, I was like, hey, Denise, how can I get better in the low register? And I remember you talking about this exercise specifically. And they're fifths. So it starts on G down to C. And I think it's quarter notes. D.
Yeah, it's 8 notes. It's like ba da 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 da, and you just keep going down. Like you start on open, then you go to second, then first, then 1 and 2, 2 and 3. Okay. And it actually starts off on minor thirds, and then it goes to major thirds, then fourths, and you go from there.
Okay. So I guess I remember you talking about that exercise.
Yeah.
I don't remember doing it.
It's all good. It's all good. But when I do that exercise, my break range, which I think for most players is the weakest part of their playing. If I do that exercise, I feel fantastic about my break range. And then I usually do a couple of etudes and things like that. So that's, honestly, it's making my face feel really good. So I'm happy when that is happening. So it's not necessarily about learning new rep, although I am trying to, you know, just kind of continually take a look at quartet stuff. And, you know, since that's a lot of music for me to learn.
Because you are the new fourth horn of the American Horn Quartet.
Yeah. Yay.
It's a huge bravo. That's
yeah,
awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, it's I didn't know it was, you know, on my bucket list, but apparently it was.
I mean, those fourth horn parts are, I mean, crazy. Out of this world. I mean, they were written for Charlie Putnam. Like, I mean, you can go back and listen to all those recordings of the American Horn Quartet that are just out of this world. Yeah. But I mean, it truly sounds like a different instrument when he plays. I mean, it sounds like it's like a member of the trombone family, but it's like, but better.
Yeah. Sorry, trombone players.
Sorry. I should have said that. But so if we talk about that break register, you just said something that really was interesting for me. You said the break register is the kind of the hardest, the last one to develop, and the weakest. Yeah. And if I can get that feeling good, I feel good in all registers. Yeah. And first of all, could you tell us what the break register is for those of us who might not know, who might not be.
Sure. Yeah. Now, I will say that there are some players and teachers that don't really feel like the break range exists. I wasn't exactly sure how to say that. And there are some people that it's just such a gradual change that there's no specific place where a new sort of set locks in. And, you know, I jokingly say that I don't like those people, but because my break is so
pronounced.
It's so pronounced. That was the best word for that. Yeah. You know, look, and if you're one of those people that you just slowly change, you know, from like a third space C all the way down to low C, great. And, you know, and if it sounds good, that's all that matters. But for the majority of players out there, there is a place where you have your high sets, and then you have a place where your jaw is going to come out and the corners are going to come down a little bit. Some people a lot, like you want to talk about fantastic frowns when they play Charlie Putnam, the most incredible frown when he plays. Wow. I mean, it looks like a caricature. It's fantastic. Oh, man. So yeah, and what's happening when you bring that jaw out is it allows the airstream to start to flow up a little bit, and that's pretty much what needs to happen for the low range. But for most people, it's going to be somewhere between G, the first note of Shostakovich, the low tutti, somewhere between that and the E above that, the bottom line of the treble staff.
Yeah, exactly. Mine's right on middle C, maybe a little bit C, B flat, somewhere in there. Yeah. And I can move it. Like if I need to, I can move it up to like a C sharp or a D, or I can move it down if necessary as low as an A. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think for most advanced players, there is a range where you can play on both your high and your low. When somebody is just trying to figure out where their break range is, then I try to make them be sort of like draw a line in the sand, because otherwise they're just going to constantly be cheating and nothing's going to become solid. And then once we have it locked in place, then we can start to like become a little bit more flexible. Yeah. And so what I would tell people that maybe if you don't know where that low set is, try playing a low B flat, like first note of Untitled Chapter, something like that, and come up chromatically slurred. And you want to be sure that your jaw, you have good contact with your teeth, that the jaw is a little bit out. Some people drop straight down. Some people come straight out. Some people are in the middle. I'm in the middle. And I actually think that coming more out than down is helpful. But again, nobody's made the same. So you do what sounds best. Yeah. And if you are on that, in that register, if you've gotten to the point where you have no contact with your teeth and your lower lip is sort of rolling out this way, that means that you're not truly in your low set. You're actually trying to play down there on your high set. Wow. And it's going to have what I've technical term, what I call meow.
Yes, so, I love that. Meow.
Yeah. got
I
that
played something the
real,
other day, and I was like thinking about you. I was like, meow.
yeah, got that real sound. So, yeah, so, you know, start from there. And if you have got that good contact, then bring that up and don't allow the contact to change. And you'll find a place where suddenly, could you hear that? That was my dog snoring.
Oh,
That was amazingly loud.
Oh,
Buddy. But so, yeah, you'll find a place where it just doesn't work anymore. And you're going to have to switch into what would be a more probably for you a normal place. Or
yes.
when I say you know, anybody playing. Yeah. So that's you know, it's just where the because we have a 5-octave range. So it's like, you know, we've got a place where it's gotta break.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, tuba players have a similar thing.
Trumpets do as well?
No, tuba.
Okay, tuba. Okay.
Yeah.
So I was going to say that it's really awesome to hear you talk about this in such detail, and I think it's also really you're so able to explain it, which is really helpful. So just for me, that was the last register to really develop, like right around my break. And so that's why I spend every day starting right around my break. And that's why I do long tones around my break. And it's just, you know, I work on that because it is really one of my weakest registers. But could you tell a little bit about your journey and just from Columbus to Detroit to Philly to Peabody to you know, Cincinnati? Yeah, exactly.
Well, so I mentioned, so I went to school at in Boston at NEC, studied with Chuck Kowalski, who was the principal horn there for many, many years. And I studied with him for 3 years, and then he took a sabbatical. And I studied with the tuba player in the Boston Symphony, who at the time was Chester Schmitz. And everybody always asks, oh, is that why you're, you know, a great low horn player? No, not at all. And we didn't talk about technique. We talked about music 100% of the time. He's one of the most incredible musicians I've ever met. It's just beautiful, beautiful playing. So, and talk about somebody who had a lot of energy. His lessons would last however long the pot of coffee would last that he would bring in. He'd bring in a big pot of coffee. It's like 2.5 hours later, you're like, oh my God, I can't play anymore. But yeah, so that was my senior year there. And then I took a year off from school. I never really wanted to get an advanced degree. I was just not interested in that. But I was with a wind quintet for a long time, many, many years, 7 years. And we got into the artist diploma program at NEC. And so it's a 2-year program all about soloists and yeah. And so, but in the middle of that degree, I got into New World and I had to make a decision.
Oh, wow.
What do I want to do in my life? Do I want to do chamber music or do I want to do orchestra? And at the time, it was much more difficult to make it, in my opinion, as a chamber group. There was no social media. It was just really hard to get your particular brand out.
Yeah.
So I thought, you know, for the sake of eating, I don't know why that's good, but eating, having a roof over your head, exactly. Eating, then I thought, okay, I'm gonna go to New World, and I will say that was leaving that group was one of the hardest things I've ever done.
Yeah, because everyone, you know, that's like all for one, one for all, and it's like, hey, you know, we're all in this, but at a certain point, you just got to say like, hey, like my career is going this direction, and I need to, you know, focus on this, and it's tough, like especially as like a new group that's trying to, you know, make it. But
and we won a lot of the competitions out there, but it's just it was I sort of saw the writing on the wall, so I went down to New World. I was there for 3 years. Then I was in Columbus for 2 years, and then I was in the Baltimore Symphony as second horn. It's the only position where the only job where I was second horn instead of fourth. Mm-hmm. And I was there for 3 years. And one would think that I started at Peabody at that point, but I did not. So I won Detroit, fourth in Detroit, and Carl and I had known each other. Carl Pittock and I had known each other for many, many years. Prior to that, we played in the Colorado Music Festival together. And so it was really great to like be back playing in a section with him. And I love that section. I love that orchestra. We love living in Detroit. You know, it's gritty and
I mean, that was back, I mean, what was it, the mid 2000s, you know, early 2000s, you know, and it was just like, Detroit, I remember, like, we used to go there in the 90s, right, to go see Tigers games. And then in the early 2000s, I'd go to, like, you know, some concerts, some shows. And I remember, like, we'd go to, like, Greektown, and then we'd go to, like, St. Andrews Theater, or St. Andrews Hall. And that was the State Theater. We're just like, that's it. All right. Get back in the car, lock the door, drive real quick. Because like Detroit was scary.
And we lived
like so much better now. You know?
And we lived about a mile, maybe not even a mile from the stadiums. So we were like right in between the stadiums and Orchestra Hall. So I was there for 6 years, and
that's a great section too. Dave,
a great section.
Yeah, I mean Dave was.
Dave Everson. Brian Kennedy. At the time, it was Corbin Wagner. Now Scott is there. He's great. Joanna's great, who replaced me. Carl, Mark. They're all. It's just a great section.
And
they get along really well.
And too, right?
Their hall is amazing.
I just think about Detroit as like, you know, it's one of those orchestras that's really a fantastic orchestra that, you know, probably, I don't know, I would love to hear them play more. And they
they do a webcast. So I feel like they did one they do one every week. And I think right now you can still get on and hear a lot of those back concerts.
That's awesome.
So people should check that out, because it's a great orchestra and great section. So I was there 6 years. And so when I was talking about being in the American Horn Quartet and how I didn't know it was a bucket list item, one of the things I was going to say is I don't like to have goals. And I know that sounds maybe a little bit weird, but I'm more process oriented than goal oriented.
No.
Unfortunately, in my youth, my stupid youth, I got in my head, I want to be in a top 5 orchestra. And that was starting to haunt me a bit, because I was in not a top 5 orchestra. I was very happy in Detroit. And yet there was this nagging sort of thing. So I kept auditioning and got into the finals for Boston Symphony. And having gone to school there, I was really, really sad that I didn't get that job. And Philly was just 12 days after that. And after that audition that I didn't win, that nobody won.
Wow.
And so, so I was it was really hard for me to practice and all that. And I kept saying by this time I was already teaching at Peabody. So I was flying from Detroit to Baltimore every single week to teach. And then I'd finish and I'd fly back home.
Was that on like a Sunday? You'd fly on a Sunday and then
we had Sunday concerts. We had Sunday concerts. So then, after the Sunday concert, I would go out to the airport. I would usually teach from like 9 to midnight or something like that on Sunday night. And then I'd get up and I'd do, maybe 10 straight hours, like 7 to 5 or 8 to 6. I was like, somebody do the math for me. Oh. And then I would have like an 8:30 flight back. I've always been a little bit insane, but that was probably the height of it.
Wow. Wow. I mean, that's just like, it's impossible, because you're just like so tired from like playing a concert, like, especially 3-4 concerts in a row. Yeah. And then like when you teach, like you really give a lot of energy. I mean, like I teach a couple hours here or there, and I'm just always surprised that like after an hour, I'm just exhausted. Mentally,
it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the weekend that the Philly audition was, it was like maybe spring break for Peabody. So if I didn't go to that audition, I wouldn't have had to travel. I was like, oh, wouldn't it be nice to just sit home? And honestly, my husband was like, no, you've got to do this. You've been preparing. Like, just get on the airplane. Okay, so I get on the airplane and I go and I get to the hotel and I text him. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to just like not set an alarm, sleep in. I'm going to hang out in Philly for a couple of days. No, just set the alarm. All right. So I set the alarm. I get up. Yeah, I'm going to cancel. No, just do your warm up routine. So honestly, he like held my hand long distance through all of that until I got to the hall and I played and then I advanced and I was like, okay, now I'm in it to win it at this point.
Wow.
So then it was like, you know, my instincts kicked on and I was ready to go. So, yeah, I certainly was not anticipating winning that job. I thought I would be better suited playing wise to a Boston than a Philly, but my sound has some dark qualities to it. So I think it worked well at the bottom of that section. And I was there for 7 years, 8 years. I don't know, something. I think 8.
Yeah, I think
that's right. I think I left
it was 2008 when you won that job.
2009, and I finished in 17. Yeah. And so then it was just a nice train ride from Philly down to Baltimore, you know, 70 minutes on the train. I could do work. It was easy. So I did that. And as time went on doing that, it was basically like I had 2 full-time jobs. And Philly's heavy and they travel a lot in the summers and big, you know, international tours. And
yes.
And, you know, it's a heavy job. I love the job, but it was a heavy job. So, and I really loved teaching and I still love, I don't know why I put that in the past tense, but I'm talking in the past. So I love teaching and I was starting to do a lot of solo work and a lot of recitals and master classes around the world. And it was getting to the point where I was being asked to do things and I wasn't able to get out of Philly because it wasn't fair to the section, it wasn't fair to the orchestra.
Yeah.
So I had to, yes, Vincent, I agree. Thank goodness I was in Philly so we could meet. So, I had a decision to make, my body was starting to not really handle the stress all that well. So through a lot of talking, you know, with my husband, it was like, okay, I think I'm going to take a year leave of absence from the orchestra to figure out how do I feel teaching full time and not playing in an orchestra full time.
Yeah.
And so, and honestly, it was a really hard decision. There was nothing easy about this decision.
I know.
You know,
Philly Orchestra is like one of the best orchestras in the country and certainly in the world. I mean, that string section, as you said earlier, it's just like being embraced by a giant hug.
Yeah.
And especially like, I mean, all the sections are great. Like the cello section, the violin section has this amazing legato, this shimmer that, I mean, really only you can get in the Philadelphia Orchestra.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and there are other great string sections. I mean, the viola section is phenomenal. I mean, they're all virtuosos. Like the bass section, they're just like, you know, obviously like, you know, Hal and Joe Conyers and all those guys. And then
it's great. I mean, and winds and brass percussion, everybody's great. I mean, it's you know, and I'd reached that goal. You know, I wanted to be in a top 5, and I'd reached that goal. And then I got there, and I was like, well, now I'm just too busy. I mean, it sounds like I'm complaining. I'm not. It was a great problem to have.
No, I mean, I'm there with you though. I mean, Chicago, I'm really busy. I don't have time for anything else. I don't have time to really teach. I don't really have time to do any solo or chamber. It's just, you know, that's my job.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that. And while I have this break now, I'm like really happy to, you know, have some projects like, you know, interviews, but yeah, absolutely. I feel when you're in a job like that, it's just really, there's a lot of tours, a lot of rehearsals, a lot of music coming up every week, big concerts.
Yeah. And you record and yeah, it's a lot. And I was, like I said, I was like, you know, traveling, we would go on tour to Asia and I would give 3 recitals while on top of doing that, which anybody who's toured knows how weird your face feels and how bad you feel, period. So, so I decided to take a year leave of absence from the orchestra just to see how would I feel not playing full time. And so within a couple of months, and I had so many offers to go do other things. Some play in orchestras. It was that year that I came and played with Chicago for the first time. Sat next to Dale and played Rite of Spring, and we rocked horns 7 and 8. Um, and yeah, so it's like I got asked to do a lot of orchestral playing, but also a lot of solo playing, a lot of master classes. So I was probably the busiest I'd been. It just wasn't 100% orchestral music. And honestly, by the time I got to about late October of that year leave, I knew that that this was the direction I was supposed to go. But when I had to type that email, which I had to type the email in late January, I had to give my decision. When I typed that email, I sat there, I wrote it, and I looked at it, and I had a drink, and I looked at it, and I thought, oh God, what am I doing? I got to the top of my field, and now I'm going to walk away voluntarily. Yeah. And I thought, but I'm happier, and I get to do a little bit more of what I want to do. And I can go back and sub in Philly and play with those great musicians, you know, whenever the orchestra wants me to, which has been great. So I hit send, and I spent that night sort of grieving what my orchestral career had been and what I had worked for my entire adult life. Yeah. I've been working for that since I was probably about 17. And then I got up the next day and I was like, I feel great, let's go. So I gave myself that night to grieve, and I honestly, I haven't regretted it. Wow. Once. Yeah. And I just went on tour with Philly back in the fall to Asia. We had a great time. And I was supposed to go play a show of Beethoven 8, Beethoven 4, and Beethoven 7. I was supposed to play that on second horn. We were going to all three in one concert, and then we were supposed to go to Carnegie. And then it was one of my first extra gigs to get canceled. But so I was teaching full time, and then in Peabody, and there'd always been a couple of schools that I thought, well, if they ever opened, you know, if the professor ever decided to retire, I would really be interested in that job. And CCM was one of those positions. And literally my first day of full-time work at Peabody, after having left the orchestra, I got a call saying that Randy Gardner had decided to retire, and would I be interested in interviewing for it? And I was like, oh my God, yes, you know, it's one of, so, yeah. And it's, we love Cincinnati. I love the school. The studio's fantastic. I enjoy working with everyone, and, yeah, so.
That's amazing. Great. Amazing. I just love hearing your journey, and I love hearing your story, but just also the fact that you had this thing that you thought was like you wanted, and then you looked at it and you were able to say, this is maybe not like what I ultimately wanted. You know, yeah. It's like you get there and you do it for a number of years, or, you know, in my case, I did Berlin for a year, and yeah. It was just like, you know, it's, you know, I had to resign, you know, I resigned from Berlin, and it's, again, yeah. It's one of those things I did grieve for that. You know, it's like, yeah. It's a tough thing to get to someplace that you always wanted, and then say, you know what, I'm going to take a step back or do something different. And, you know, ultimately, yeah, those moments where we have losses, or we have, just unexpected, you know, turn of events from like what we planned, I think those make us more resilient. They make us more deep musicians, and they also make us a little bit more empathetic, and made me a little bit more empathetic to like what other people are going through, and, you know, it just also, I just feel like I'm more grateful, like where I'm at today. Yeah. You know, so.
Yeah, and I think it also helps us realize that goals change, that life changes, that and I think that when you try to just stay true to one thing, even if it's not working, it's what I always say, it's like when I was little, I had a toy. I mean, when I was really little, I had a toy that had the shapes cut out in a block, and you had to put the correct shapes in. It's like you took the octagon shape and you're trying to hammer it into the circle hole. And it's like, well, that doesn't exactly work, but it's so close. Maybe I can just keep hammering at this. So it's like, you know, have the courage to experience other things. And one of my mottos now is like, if it scares me a little bit playing wise, then that means that I need to do it, because not performing 4 or 5 times a week in front of an audience can make your world small if you let it.
Yeah.
So I try to really put myself out there and push my boundaries so that I stay mentally as healthy as I can.
I mean, you've also had a bunch of commissions that you've been like active with. You've recorded a couple albums. Like you're doing a lot of like recitals and soloists, you know, performances. Yeah, so you are really pushing yourself, and you're pushing the repertoire and the boundaries of like, hey, like this is what we can do on the low horn or the horn in general.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering, what advice would you give to students, like especially during this time of stay at home, you know, to like help challenge themselves, to help kind of like push themselves, maybe just to kind of get through the day, like to uplift themselves.
Yeah. I think that there are, everybody has such a different way of making themselves happy on the instrument. And so some people like me are really happy when I'm working on sort of basic things and those things are going really well. And I feel like my face is working really well. So for me, the scales, my routine, and, you know, the Sparkus exercise, that makes my face happy. Therefore, I'm happy. But if that sort of stuff doesn't make you happy, you do need to do a little bit of it to make sure that you're warmed up and ready to go. But then work on some new pieces that you've always wanted to learn. You know, if you want to learn how to do some jazz playing, then, you know, play along with the recording. And one thing that I recommend for a lot of people who get sort of depressed during this time and we're not playing with other people is turn on a recording of your favorite orchestra or chamber music or jazz or whatever and play along. And for some people, it's okay to just turn it on the computer or their stereo system or whatever and play with the speakers. For others, I say put on headphones so that you feel like you're a part of the orchestra. So that's a great way for people to sort of get out of their head and maybe feel a little bit of joy. But I feel like whatever makes you happy on the instrument, do that.
Yeah.
So that, you know, so that you continue to find the joy and the love in what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, but I love the fact that you're like, I mean, if we liken this to a diet, you know, like, all right, what things do I eat that make me happy? Cookies, right? Cake, you know? And so like, you know, I would go eat some cookies, but if I eat too much cookies, like, you know, I'm not gonna be so happy anymore. So that's where you say like, hey, work on the fundamentals, work on the scales, work on the Farkas, you know, kind of warm ups. And that's like, you know, eating your vegetables or like, you know, eating your spinach for lack of a better, you know, term.
Yeah.
Could you just give like a little bit of advice? I don't know, just for what stuff to work on. I know you said the Chantal book. I know you said some like, what solo would you know, recommend for players that they might not?
Yeah, I was already going to Etude Books.
Okay.
Because that's what I want to do is Etude Books. What solos? Well, it depends on what you want to work on. You know, do you want to work on your high range? And not that it's very high, but you know, you could work on something really traditional like Strauss 1 or Mozart 2 or 4, something very traditional. If you want to work a little bit more on sort of louder playing, but a little bit more block oriented, you could do a little bit of Hindemith sonatas. Either one is, you know, really nice for that. If you want to work on some low range, we were talking about all the commissions that I've done. 4 of them are available for purchase and another 6 will be hopefully in a few months. So there are just so many great pieces out there. I think do a lot of listening and see what makes you happy and what excites you. You know, lyrical playing, do Glière, you know, there's just so much great music out there. Yes, Bagatelle.
So, in our last minute, could you just talk about why music is so important and the arts are so important right now?
Well, I think that anything that we watch on TV or experience has some kind of art in it. It's all art. So without art, we would have nothing to watch or listen to. I think that it can make us happy. I think it can give us a little bit of peace. You know, it can soothe us a bit. So I think it's really important not only for us to enjoy and digest that, you know, to hear music, to watch beautiful film, to a lot of art museums have free online. You can go and like tour the art museum.
Denise, we're gonna end. I'm gonna restart. Hey, we were just finishing up our chat with Denise Tryon, who is one of my favorite horn players, one of my best friends, and yeah, she's also a phenomenal low horn player, soloist, and we're just finishing up hearing her thoughts about music, and I'm gonna go online so we can finish this conversation. It's been such a pleasure having the morning with Denise and getting to see her again, and yeah, getting to share fun stories and hear all about the commission she's doing, and also, you know, to see her puppy. It's just a 6-month-old French bulldog, so really happy we got to see her new addition to our family. Hello to Melody from Taiwan. Hello, Klaus Fair. Hello, Jeff Nelson. Hello, Liam McCoon. We're waiting for Denise to go live here. Hello, Maestro Kanayan. And let's see, we've got Stephen Foe. We've got Vargas, Dante, Daniel, 4 Flutes, 1 Eye. We've got a lot of folks on today. Tech Horn, Rose Horn, 5 others. Frank Demler from Berlin. Hey, good to see you, my friend. Oh, man, we're just waiting for this technology to really, oh, man, bummer. Okay, let's see if we can go on one more time. I don't know why this is technology for me. I'm telling you, it just always, hey, there we are.
Hey, there we go.
I don't know. I hit the connect button and it just was like, nope.
Yeah. And I tried to request and it was like, nope.
So your thoughts about, you know, music and entertainment just being like, I mean, music and arts are everywhere. It's TV. Yeah. It's like, you know, on our recordings, it's, you know, radio, it's everything that we do to entertain ourselves and to really, you know, think and to feel and to express is just the arts. But I forget where you left off exactly. You were just.
Yeah, I think we were talking about, like, you know, art museums have all these free online, you know, opportunities for you to go experience what they have. And I think that it's not only important to like experience that so that you're watching and listening, but part of what we love about music is sharing it with others. So if that is creating a cappella videos with your friends, if that is going live, you know, on social media and sharing that, and it's not about playing perfectly, you know.
I'll just tell you, like, for the whole first half of this interview, I was just thinking about, like, all right, so before you joined, I tried to play the Star Wars thing, and like, I completely like splatted the high B flat, and I was like, that's embarrassing. I wonder if I could edit that out. And I was like, you know, I'm human, you know, it's like, hey, it happens. Like, you know, I mean, even like, I don't know. I mean, it happens to all of us. Let's just say that. But it's like, you know, you go for like the, you know, the high note in Strauss 1 on occasion, or, you know, Schumann Adagio Allegro. And I remember there was a student I did a master class in Beijing a few years ago. And I had a student who, you know, missed the high B flat, and he started crying. And I remember thinking, like, man, it's not that big of a deal, right? Yeah. It doesn't make us a good person, doesn't make us a bad person to miss a note, you know, and no one's perfect. Like, you know, especially me. I mean, I'm not perfect, but the thing is like, when I have those mistakes, it's like, okay, like, what can I learn from it? All right, well, maybe like, you know, don't just pick up any horn and try to hit the high B flat. Like, pick up your horn if you want to, like, hit the high B flat for your, like, you know, for your concert. Don't use the horn you warm up on in your apartment. Like, put together, take the time to put together your concert horn that you practice on, you play everything with, and, you know, it's, and then also too, like, hey, like, maybe practice it before you just pick it up and just, you know, play it.
Yeah. Well, and for me, I don't allow my students to say the word perfect. It's one of my no-nos. And one of the questions that we had talked about, you know, that we didn't get to, but I might, now that we're in a second hour, I might,
yeah, absolutely.
Is how do you, I don't remember, I'm going to have to paraphrase, but like how can you be happy when you have a performance that maybe isn't up to your standards or something along those lines? So for me at this point, the only, I just said I wasn't necessarily goal oriented. The only goal I have, sorry self, is that I want to go for the music. I don't want to let the fear win, because sometimes we miss notes because we start thinking about, oh, that I've missed that note before. I got to be sure to hit that note. And instead of just playing great music. And I think that when you think about your favorite players in the world, when you hear them live, they miss notes, you know, or if it's a string player, they don't have, you know, always spot on intonation or, you know, shifts or something like that. It's about creating great music. And so what you walk away from those performances thinking is, God, that was just so great. You might not even remember the missed notes.
Yeah.
So for me, the only time I'm unhappy when I walk off stage is if I let the fear win. That's the only time I'm unhappy. And I can honestly say that. I mean, I'm sure there have been performances that, well, not I'm sure. I always know there are things I can do better. I'm always looking to be a better player. But if I do great music and I don't let the fear win, I'm super happy.
Yeah. And I think for me, great music, like I have to like ask myself, what is great music?
Yeah.
And for me, great music is great communication.
Yeah.
It's having a great plan. It's having a great story. It's having, you know, really practiced. It's having like, I know those moments where I want to change the color, or I want to, you know, try to really draw the listener in by playing something soft, or I take a risk and it really like pays off, or I take a risk and maybe it doesn't go exactly as planned, but I'm able to still convey that emotion, that effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would always like to listen to somebody who takes some risks and maybe, you know, misses a few, than somebody who tries to play note perfect and doesn't take some risks and doesn't really say something and communicate with me. Because that's boring. For me, it's just not, it's not interesting to listen to. So I'll always take those risks, and sometimes they'll pay off and sometimes they won't. And then when it doesn't, I know what I need to work on in order to make sure that it pays off the next time.
Yeah, so we go back to the lab and we like, you know, we look at the experiment, we look at our notes and we say, okay, maybe let's add a little bit less of this or a little bit more of this. And I think that's, that for me is like something that it impresses me about you, is that like, you're really like, all right, or, you know, any top level player, like they play something and then they go back and they self-examine, they remember, they say, all right, where did this go well? Where did this maybe not go so well? And what can I do to change some of the variables, or how can I practice this different? So, you know, and, you know, for me, when I play, I was doing a lot of recitals before I was getting ready for Berlin. And I remember like, I'd fix the one thing, you know, from the night before, and then something else had happened. So I'd fix that the next day. You know, it's like you're patching holes in the dam. So like you got your toes up and you're like, but it's like, you know, I'd fix one hole and then, you know, I'd find another hole, and then, you know, kind of, the most fun I had during that whole string of, you know, 9 recitals that I was doing, and I was just playing Strauss 1 and Mozart 4, but I went to a cafe and I was playing in like a bar where there were like people were serving like food and drinks, and they were having conversations while I'm playing Strauss 1 and while I'm playing Mozart 4. And I just remember thinking like, man, I got to compete with people's food and drink. Like this is like, or their conversation. And like, I've never been in a classical situation where people are talking. And it was so cool because like, it really made me say like, all right, if I want to engage with them, I have to really engage. If I really want their attention, I really have to entertain. And I have to say something now. And that's where it was like, okay, now it can't be about, no, perfect. It's got to be about that communication and that entertainment.
Yeah, and when I one thing that sort of got me over the hump of winning that top 5 job for me was giving recitals, and that's I gave my first recital in like 15 years, right before getting to the finals of Boston and winning Philly. And when I was preparing that recital, I wanted to do things in the low register. And that's when I started realizing, wow, there's really just not a lot of music out there. And that's how the whole commissioning thing started. But I do remember that, and I don't know if Carl's still on at this point, but it was like afterwards, Carl said, wow, you seemed really relaxed. I was like, oh, wow, because I was really nervous, you know, and I, per usual, Denise, I acted like an idiot, and I sort of made a face, and I put my knees together, you know, I was standing. Luckily, I wasn't holding my horn because I dislocated my knee at that point and went down, and everyone thought I was still just like being funny until they realized that I stayed down and I'm like screaming in pain and hitting my knee trying to get it to go back on. You know?
So, first recital in 15 years, you dislocated your knee.
Yes. Yeah, and what I have now learned through a few, you know, through all of that is when I get kind of tense about something, when I'm holding tension, the place I'm holding it is in my legs.
Yes.
And that's why my kneecap, well, I mean, I have problems with my knees anyways, but that's why my kneecap sort of went off.
Carl says it was
funny at first.
Oh my gosh.
I fell down like a sack of potatoes. It was just sad.
It was funny at first.
It was funny at first.
Oh man, amazing. Yeah, I think, you know,
Yeah.
our body tension though, that's like one of the things where like we can really improve our sound. And I'll be honest, a couple weeks ago, like I was playing something in the low register. I was playing Shostakovich 5, and it wasn't, you know, there were some areas that I was like not super happy with. And so of course, you know, me wanting to learn, I want to go to somebody that actually, you know, does that thing really well. And so I sent you a text and said, Denise, help. And you're like, do you really want my help? And
I was like, you're joking, right? And I was like, no, really? And I'm like, and then you called me.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it was like, but I felt like I was like, man, I just got all these like little bits of things to chew on for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, like food for thought. You go to like someone that does something better than you, and you're just like, hey, like, I have no shame saying like you played like the low register like amazing, and I need help in that. And so like I went to you and you talked about tension. You talked about like releasing tension in my tongue.
Yeah, in your tongue, yeah. And also on the upper lip. Yeah, so tension, and somebody just asked what are my tips for Shostakovich 5. But so I'll talk about it a little bit, but I will say that I do have a YouTube video on Shostakovich 5. So
awesome.
Check that out.
Watch it. We'll watch that.
But for me, when I hear that sort of round sound, it means that either the person's got a tense tongue, and what that is causing is the air, it makes the airstream get a bit faster. Because usually when you have a tense tongue, it's like up and, you know, and it's causing the airstream to be a bit faster. So the sound has more high overtones than you maybe want. And then the other thing is that the lower you go, the more relaxed your upper lip is going to be. You still want your corners to be firm, but for me, when I'm in, like, let's say that the low B flat that's in Shostakovich 5, for me, it's almost like the tuba size mouthpiece. All of that part of my upper lip is really, really relaxed. And often people are trying to like grip the airstream with their upper lip. And that's a kind of, a kind of control. And anytime you're trying to control anything in your life, it usually doesn't work.
Wow. Yeah.
You know, so
yeah.
So just letting it go and let the air do the work. The air is the gasoline of the car. Let the air do the work, and your chops can kind of steer it like the steering wheel.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that really helped me get a better sound. It really helped me. I mean, after we talked, I was able to play like that, like middle low register and the low register on Shostakovich 5 on F horn, and I was like, and have a great sound. And I was like, man, like that range from like the G down to the B flat, I was able to play all that stuff.
Yeah, and you want a little bit of a slower airstream, a little bit warmer airstream. If the airstream is too fast or too cold, then again, you're going to get too many of those high overtones, and it's going to be, you're going to get the real tension in the sound.
Yeah. Someone asked about releasing the
releasing the tongue. Yeah.
The tongue.
So in that register, I think more of a THO, a THO, and just as if I would sing it, so that the tongue isn't pulling back super fast, because then I feel like I'm getting I always say it feels like I'm getting slapped in the face when I'm listening to somebody who does that. And and for me, I want the vowel to, that's the most important thing, because that's the body of the sound.
Yeah.
So I don't want to add a super hard tongue to that. Now that's me, because for me, articulation is led more by the air than by the tongue. That's my approach. So, so I'll try singing it with a though in there. And as I get higher, I'll switch to something else. But down there, I'm going to think more of a though.
Amazing. Wow. Do you have any fixes for like a shaky sound? Because that's, I mean, it's not something that I've ever dealt with. That's something that I never, I just don't know about that. It was just something that like, it just came to mind. I was like, well, you seem to really have like a clear fix for the low register. That is another problem that like I've had students come to me with, and I just haven't been able to fix.
So is shaky sound mean in the low register or anywhere?
Anywhere.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of quiver in the sound.
So I think there are two things that are coming into place. One is not having enough contact with the lower teeth. For me, that's the foundation. That's the touch point. So I have like a bit of a callus on the inside of my lower lip where it gets pressed against the teeth. Yeah. So I bring the jaw out a little bit to meet the mouthpiece, so that I don't have to play with where my natural bite is. Okay. So I bring the jaw out to meet it, and that gives me that foundation where I can kind of sink into that. And then usually with the shake, it's then after that, it's either that the corners aren't firm enough, or that your lip and your air are like fighting to see who is who's in control of the situation. Oh, wow. And for me, it's about letting go of that tension here, and depending on where, if it's low register, it's a bigger amount of upper lip. If it's higher, it's smaller amount, but it's still, you want that inside part to be relaxed. And if it's not relaxed, it's like fighting, it's like fighting that air that's trying to get out. So just let the air take the lead and go from there. Okay.
Can I ask a couple other technical specific questions?
Yeah.
All right. So have you ever like heard anyone that has the leak in their corners? Like what do we do for that?
Well, yeah, that probably means that that right on the outside of the mouthpiece is just not quite firm enough. So usually I'm looking around for a piece of paper, but of course I'm sitting in a very strange position.
Maybe on your music stand, is there one? Or
no, but there is the back of a book, so I can always just write on that. Yeah. I'll take my chantel.
Oh man, I feel honored that you're writing on your chantel.
That I'm gonna write on my chantel. This was the very first book I owned, and it cost $5.95. That's how long I've had it.
Oh my gosh, I don't know how much mine was.
It probably says on the back.
It probably does. No, not my edition, I don't think.
Man.
Yeah.
All right. It's important for everyone to understand that I am not an artist. It's really important to understand this. I'm married to one, but I am not one. Okay. So there's the embouchure. Woo. Yeah. Right, there's a nose.
Yeah, okay.
And this is our sort of corners, right?
Yes.
Okay, and we all know that we want our chin to come down, be nice and firm, but everything else needs to be pointing. That's hard to do when you can't see your own anything. Yeah. But everything else needs to be pointing towards the aperture and towards the mouthpiece. Okay. So if that's not happening, you might want to look to see, is your upper lip being pulled this way? Are you more snarling? Okay. You can see what's happening here, or are you sort of pointing down this way? And my students are trying to get me to laugh at a particular phrase that they keep writing in here, and I'm trying to hold it together. There's a particular phrase where I lose my cookies, just laughing hysterically. All right. So that's one thing, and I would try to practice just with the free buzz, just to see if you can, is it really super wide, taking up the whole thing, or can you focus it in a bit?
Okay. Oh, all right. And I think, man, there was one other question I was thinking of. I can't think of it off the top of my head. If I think of it later on down the road, I'll ask you. Wasn't the shake? It wasn't the. No, I can't think of it off the top of my head. It's something that I encounter occasionally with with horn students, and I just haven't really had it. I mean, but obviously the shaky playing and the leak are kind of something.
Yeah, the thing is, I get asked a lot of technical questions about the embouchure, and I think it's mostly because, and of course, people don't know this when they're asking me this, but I've done 4 embouchure changes in my life.
Wow.
I mean, me personally, I've been led through 4 embouchure changes, and so I've had to learn a lot about the embouchure through that process.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm incredibly fascinated by the embouchure.
I remembered it.
Hey, there we go.
All right, double buzz.
Oh, double buzz.
Double buzz.
Okay, so for most people, double buzz happens in one of 2 areas for most people. Either right around the bottom of the staff, treble staff, around like E or G, or the other people are around third space C, somewhere in there. And for me, it's right around the bottom of the staff, especially E flat. So if I play Tchaikovsky 4, and if the conductor plays it a little bit too slow, in my opinion, or is really egging us on to play loud, by the time we get to the end of Tchaikovsky 4, I'm going to be double buzzing like a crazy person. So when it's happening in the like in a performance or something where you just need to keep playing, you just take 5 or maybe 10% off of your volume, you'll stop double buzzing.
Oh, okay.
If it's happening consistently when you're playing loud, or because usually it only happens when you're tired, like the aperture has just gotten blown out too much. So but if it's happening, for some people, it just happens. Like I had a couple of students throughout my time teaching, that it just, every time they got to a certain note, it just happened. So what I found is that something is a little bit too low or too open. So either the jaw is a little bit too open and that's dragging the aperture open. It could be that the tongue is a little bit too low and therefore the airstream is a little too slow for the note that you want to be hitting, and it's causing some things to fight. But something is just a little bit too open. Yeah. So I usually tell people, try closing your jaw, 1 or 2 millimeters. It'll feel like a lot, but it's not. And it usually stops for people.
Huh, okay.
And the other thing is that if this is the note, it could be that the airstream is feeling like this, and you want the airstream to feel more like this onto the note.
Yeah, it's a conflict.
Down. Yeah, it's a conflict.
Yeah, of airstream versus lip. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And Spencer asked, have you ever dealt with any tension or pain?
I have not, but I do know people that do. And I think there are a couple of factors. One, I would ask you, are you wearing a mouth guard when you sleep? Sorry, this is going to get very personal here.
Yeah.
I personally think that all wind and brass players should be wearing a mouth guard when they sleep. And I'm not talking about a retainer to keep your teeth straight. I'm talking about the big old, like, super attractive mouth guards, because our livelihood depends on our jaw and our teeth. And so for me, I grind my teeth pretty heavily when I sleep. I always have. And so I have to wear one. And if anyone's going to have jaw problems, it would be me, because I grind my teeth. Plus, I'm sticking my jaw out all the time when I play low. And I have not, knock on wood, I have not had any issues. But that's the first thing I would ask, is if you are wearing a mouth guard. Where
do you find one of those? Just
your dentist is going to, really, really good, well-made ones are your dentist makes it. But honestly, if it's made well, and you're not somebody who grinds their teeth all the time like I am, it probably should last you the rest of your life. For me, I have to get it remade about every 10 years because I grind through it. Yay. But if you want to, see how you feel, you can go to any, sorry, I'm going to talk in the United States here, but you can go to like a CVS or Walgreens or something like that. And they're really big, but it's like you warm them up either by putting them in warm water or in the microwave or something, and then you can bite down on it, and then it has your teeth, your imprint in there. And then, I mean, it's really, those are really chunky. The ones that are made by a dentist are not quite as bulky. But that's the first thing I would suggest. The next thing I would suggest is doing some stretches and some exercises. So a great one, and if you have problems with your jaw clicking, definitely talk to your dentist first. But a great one is to stick your jaw out, all the way out, and then, this is going to get attractive, and then open with it stuck all the way out. And you can feel that muscle around there relaxing. And then you can massage that muscle. And then the other thing is that the neck, the muscle here kind of comes around and connects in here. So give a good massage to that, whether that's with a tennis ball or your fingers or something, before you go to bed every night, to see if that helps.
Yeah, and just do some regular stretches too, like, some, like
right,
stretch your toes, right? Like roll down your spine and see if you can just articulate that spine. Yeah, man, this is, I mean, so informative. Thank you so much for these answers. I know that you know a lot about the horn, and I get really excited about just talking about some of the details. I guess lastly, like, just mentally, like, auditions are kind of a beatdown, right? And like, I feel like one of my big things is that I've done a lot of auditions, and I've had learned how to become resilient after some of these, like, not technical successes. Like, I mean, success is how you define it, right? So I could define, like, not an audition win as a success by learning something. So but it's still, it's one of those things. I was hearing someone talk about music the other day, or like read an article, and it was they were talking about music is such a thing where we put our hearts on our sleeves, right? Like, we expose ourselves to this vulnerability when we're on stage. We really, like, share our soul with the world. And like, when it gets rejected in an audition situation, like, sometimes that doesn't feel good. So how can you talk to students about getting over some of these defeats?
Well, what I say to my students, and what I now live by, I didn't live by this when I was younger. It took me a while to get to this point, but every time you step on stage, and anytime you're playing for somebody else, that's in a lesson, that's in a master class, that's a recital, that's an audition, anytime you're playing for somebody, the goal is to represent the player that you are. Everybody's got some things that they do really well, and everybody's got some things that they need work on. So if you can get to the point of representing the player that you are, after that, it's like the icing on the cake. So after that, the win is going to come. The successes, traditional successes are going to come. But if you're not at the point where you can represent your own playing when you step in front of somebody, that's the work that you need to do, because you're not going to advance if you're not representing the player that you are.
Oh my gosh. I mean, like, the way you just said that was so clear for me, because it's like, when I go to these auditions and I really come back, and I like, if I haven't, like, played how I want to play, right, and I know I can play better than that, and I went out there and I just bombed it because A, I wasn't prepared, or B, I was nervous, or C, there was some extraneous factor that I wasn't aware of, and that's when I get really down, is because it was like, these things were seemingly in my control. And
the only thing, and for a long time when I was first auditioning, because it took me a long time to advance, just even my first time, I think it was like audition 8 for me was the first time I advanced. And they decided to take the screen down in that was the semi-round. And I got so nervous that I was shaking so bad that all of my comments were, "Please relax, we want to hear you play well." And I was like, I want to hear me play well too. But I got myself off topic. All I was trying to do in those early auditions was please the committee, play in such a way that they'll like me and they'll pick me. And that you have, as in life, you have no control over if somebody likes you or not. It's not something that you can control. So I decided to stop giving my power to other people and put it back inside myself. So the things I can control are my preparation.
Yeah.
I can control the musical ideas that I want to say. I can control, hopefully, what you eat on that day if you prepare really well.
Sleep. I mean,
you know, the amount of sleep, you know, exercise, all of that stuff. And if you do all of that and you're able to then play how you play in the practice room, then that's a win as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah, so I stopped, as soon as I stopped almost caring what the committee thought of me and started just trying to represent what I wanted to say and how I wanted to say it, then everything started turning around. And I honestly can't believe all the things that have come to me when I stopped caring about what was happening out there. And of course, you want people to like what you do, but you know.
It was that saying that you said very opening in our talk today. You were just saying, like, listen, I'm not going for results. I'm not going for the goal. I'm going for, like, you know, really like the work.
The process.
Yeah, the process. You know, it's the journey, not the destination.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. And I think now, better than ever, we have the time for the journey.
Yep.
So, yeah, I just think that's a really great place for us to kind of leave off if you're, you know, you're okay with that. I mean, thank you so much for your time today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Dave.
It's so great to talk to you. I miss you. You're like one of my dear friends, and you know, obviously like one of my heroes on the horn. It's just awesome, really.
Well, I'm so happy for everything that, you know, everything that's happening with you. That's just amazing. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Hey, let's stay in touch, and maybe we can do a little duet project.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, we'll talk about that. We've got you know, some projects in the works. So
all right, sounds good.
Okay, I'll see you soon.
All right.
Thank you again. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.